Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about stories in Doctor Who that I feel like aren't talked about enough. Almost stories that I don't really know what the fan consensus is, because they never really come up. You don't hear them in conversation the way you do other stories. So stories, I'm like, so what does the fandom think of this story? I'm not 100% certain. Every now and then I may hear something for or against a story, but they're not stories that are just talked about a lot. I don't hear about them a lot. So we're going to discuss some of those today. We have 25 of them from classic and modern Who we're going to talk about, and I'll also give you my opinion on those as well. We're going to start off with the story that gave me the idea for the video. Matter of fact, one of my subscribers commented on a video talking about it recently, and I got to thinking, that's going to be a good video to do. So the first one that pops up, the one that gave me the idea for the story, is Face of Evil from season 14. Now, season 14 is held in high regard. I always hear people talk about season 14 as a whole really well. And then you hear people talk about Talons, you hear people talk about Robots of Death, you hear people talk about Hand of Fear, Deadly Assassin, but I don't hear people talk about Face of Evil as much. It kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I almost feel like it's more well known for being Leela's first story than for the story itself. I like Face of Evil. I think it's a really good story for the most part. I think it's a great introduction for Leela. Leela's one of my favorite companions. I think Tom Baker is performing the Fourth Doctor well in it. I think the Fourth Doctor is written well in it. I like the jungle set. You guys know I love a classic Who jungle set. The jungle set looks really good. I enjoy a lot of the special effects. I think there's some room for updated effects there. But I like the special effects, especially the Zoanna, or whatever the name of the computer is, when it looks like Tom Baker. That effect of its face whenever it appears is pretty impressive for classic Who, and for not, being able to use CG computers to do it. That's pretty neat. It's got some good cliffhangers in it that I really like, and it has a good resolution at the end, which I enjoy. I think it's a very solid, good story. But for some reason, I never hear it talked about. I don't really know what the fandom thinks of Face of Evil. I like it. It's actually one of my favorite of the season. I consider it the most underrated story of the season. And I actually prefer it, although I could argue Mask of Mandragora is also underrated for the season. Both of those are very underrated stories. Whereas I find stuff like Robots of Death and Deadly Assassin very overrated. I feel like Robots of Death and Deadly Assassin, and even Hand of Fear, get more attention in that it overshadows Mask of Mandragora and Face of Evil a lot. Because I find Face of Evil, again, very enjoyable. I think it's a good story. I think it's a good cast. I think it's good settings. There's a couple things I don't care for. The costumes on the guys who live inside the face, the kind of intellectual ones, I don't like their outfits and design very much. And I think I have one or two other nitpicks, like the actual face doesn't look very convincing. It's obviously a model. But the dialogue is so good. I love, that's the one where the Doctor gives his speech about how the very powerful and the very, the very powerful and the very rich, or the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common: they don't alter their views to fit the facts, or they alter the facts to fit their views. I love that speech. It's just a good story that I feel like doesn't come up enough. What is your thoughts on Face of Evil? The next one is the Shakespeare Code. I really enjoy this one. Now, if you watch my channel a lot, you know I love Series 3. I am a huge fan of Series 3. It's my favorite series of the modern series. And I enjoy this one. The guy playing Shakespeare is great. I enjoy the dialogue in it a lot. I think it's well written. I like the actresses playing the Carrionites. Especially the main one, the main girl playing the Carrionite. She is very good in that. I love the cold open when they trick the guy up there. I like that Doctor Who remembers that not everybody has a happy ending. I love that. And that some people brutally die in it. It's just Doctor Who. Not a happy ending for everybody. I like that Shakespeare's so intelligent that he catches on, that he realizes the Doctor's an alien and Martha's from another time. That whole line about you who look so young but has eyes so old, I like that. That's just good dialogue. And then I love the ending with Elizabeth I wanting to attack him and he doesn't know why because of wibbly wobbly timey wimey. It's just a solid, fun episode. And I never really hear it come up in conversation. I mean, the RTD1 era is a strong era just in general. So it's understandable that some episodes might get lost in the shuffle, but again, I never hear it come up the way other stories from that era constantly pop up in conversation. So I never quite know how people... I can't remember who wrote that episode off the top of my head, but I never really know what the fan consensus on that episode is. I enjoy it. I think Tennant's putting in a good performance. I think Freema's putting in a good performance. It's been a while since I watched it, to be fair. I haven't gone back and actually watched that one in a while. I need to add that to the to-do list. It could use a good rewatch. But I find it very enjoyable myself. Next on the list is The Unquiet Dead. Christopher Eccleston, the Ninth Doctor. This one I never hear talked about. I never hear people really talking about it. I think it's a well-made episode. I have trouble watching it. It just unnerves me. Something about the way the zombies are done in it. Let's just call them zombies for convenience. Very unnerving. The actors playing the reanimated corpses, the zombies, are very good at conveying, with the makeup applied to them, hats off to the makeup artist, that sense of this thing is not human. This thing is a shambling corpse masquerading as a person. Even though it's not really masquerading as a person, you get what I mean. Because I think the human mind has an instinctive fear of something that's almost human, but not quite. And we notice. It's the reason why, CGI throws us off. Like, CGI Tarkin in Rogue One, because somehow our brain knows that's not a living person. There's something off about it. And on some deep level, it disturbs us. And the actors do a good job of doing that with the reanimated corpses in this, which is really impressive. I've called this the scariest episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen, because I have trouble rewatching it, honestly. It just unnerves me. But it's really well made because of all those things I said. Again, like the casting. Like Christopher Eccleston thinking, like, I'm going to die here now. The guy playing Charles Dickens is great in this. It just comes together really well, especially for such an early episode of Modern Who. I really think it came out of the gate swinging. But I never hear it come up in conversation. I never hear it talked about. When people are talking about Eccleston episodes, it's Rose, or it's Dalek, or it's The Empty Child, or the finale, or if they're talking about episodes they don't like, The Long Game, or Boomtown maybe, which are underrated episodes. But this is one that just either way never comes up, which is what this video is about. I mean, some stories come up in conversation for not good reasons, like, Horns of Nymon, even though I love Horns of Nymon. This is more one I never hear them talked about, and Unquiet Dead fits that bill. Next on the list is the Sunmakers. I never really... Occasionally I hear the Sunmakers talked about, and most people's takes seem to be it's fine to good, but I don't hear it come up a lot. And I love the Sunmakers. It's Bob Holmes. It's Bob Holmes doing satire. I love Bob Holmes doing satire. I love the execution of this story. The novelization of it's really good, too. The novelization is a little more seriously written. But I like how well it's executed on screen as well. I thoroughly enjoy it. Tom Baker and Lala Ward putting in good performances. A couple of the guest cast hamming it up a little bit, but they're great. The hamming works for it. We also have Michael Keating from Blake 7 in this. Probably about, a year before he started Blake 7, and it's great to see him. So I enjoy this one. And like I said, this one I do hear some people talk about, and some people, I don't hear many people talk bad about it. It seems to either be okay to good. Not necessarily essential, but okay to good. But it doesn't come up in conversation as much as, a lot of the other more well-known stories, even from season 15. Like, I hear people talk about Invasion of Time and Underworld more, even though they're talking not great about them, or Horror of Fang Rock, because they are talking great about them, whereas Invisible Enemy is K9's first story. And so this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle for me a little bit. I don't hear it talked about a lot. The next on the list is the Faceless Ones, going with a Troughton story. Now, the Faceless Ones, I think, has a little more awareness in the fandom now that it's been animated, as before that only 2 episodes existed of this 6-parter. I do think the animation has got it a little more back in the fandom awareness. But it hasn't been like Macroterra, where I think the animation for Macroterra was so good that Macroterra is something the fandom is much more aware of, because I think I'm not alone in saying that's kind of the benchmark of the animation. The animation for Macroterra has, in my opinion, not been passed at all, but seldom been even reached. I think a lot of us point to Macroterra as like the pinnacle of the animation. And so Macroterra, kind of like when Enemy of the World was recovered, I think has been reevaluated, and I think most people would say it's pretty good. A lot of it down to how good the animation is. Whereas Faceless Ones, even though it's been animated, I never really hear much about it unless something happens relating to it, like people mentioning the actress who plays Queen Victoria in Tooth and Claw is also in this story. Or Wanda, Benedict Cumberbatch's mother, is in this story, and they're talking about stories she's been in. I never really hear people talk about the Faceless Ones. For me, it's kind of a middle-of-the-road story. It's fine, kind of C-tier. It's nothing great. It's nothing to write home about, but it's not bad. It's enjoyable at 6 parts. I think he could have done it in 4 parts, but I think the animation is good. I think it's one of the better ones. I think the animation fits around the surviving episodes well, especially since both the surviving episodes are early episodes, while waiting toward the end of the story to kind of, indulge itself on expanding on what the original production probably was. And it's fine. And it's got some hilarious moments in it for sure, especially with the Doctor. What's a passport? Oh, some legal mumbo jumbo. I love Troughton so much. But it's not like essential Doctor Who, top tier Doctor Who. It's C-tier Doctor Who, but enjoyable. But I never really hear it talked about that much, so I don't really know what the fan consensus on Faceless Ones is. You can tell me what you think of the Faceless Ones. Next on the list is the Ark. Now, I talked about the Ark recently when I was doing my video on Doctor Who stories that deserve a second chance. I talked about the Ark. And it's kind of funny because I made this list. I'm actually recording this video the same day that video went out. That video was a live chat. This is a Sunday. And the live chat for that went out, but I'd already made the list that morning. And so it was funny, as I was watching the live chat with a lot of you guys, I forgot I'd talked about the Ark there, but as I was seeing it, I was like, everything I said pretty much in that video applies here. And I even mentioned in that video, I said the Ark is a story that I never really hear anybody talk about at all. It never comes up in conversation, which is true. That's accurate, which is why it's on this list. I never hear the Ark talked about. It's not like a lot of First Doctor stories where I either hear they're good or they're bad or they're okay. You do have those stories sometimes that come up in conversation a fair bit, and they're just okay, middle-of-the-road stories. The Ark is never talked about. I hardly ever hear anybody discussing the Ark, which is a shame. As I said in that other video, I like this story. It's a good 4-parter. It could have been a 2-parter followed by another 2-parter. It's got a great twist in it halfway through with an excellent cliffhanger for episode 2 that really turns everything on its head when you start back in episode 3. It's got a good resolution at the end. I like the costume design for the Mongoloids, Metaloids, whatever they're called, Metroids. I like their outfit and costume design. I enjoy the story. I like the ramifications of Dodo having the common cold being part of the problem here with an alien species that's not immune to it. I wish Modern Who would do something like that, where a companion who accidentally has a cold, just devastates an alien race because they don't have immunity to it. Very, very War of the Worlds like almost, where it's just something like our bacteria. Or else, a companion travels back to like 1100 BC and eats an apple, but it hasn't been like pasteurized or whatever, and they get sick from it. I don't know why. Something like that I'd like to see. But yeah, the Ark it's good. It's nice. I like it. I enjoy the performances. I like the set design. It's odd to me that it doesn't get talked about more than it does, especially being one of the rare complete season 3 stories. Next on the list is Mark of the Rani. Now, this one's not quite as bad as some of them, but most of the time, if Mark of the Rani comes up in conversation, it's because people are talking about the Rani. In general, they're talking about Kato Mara, or they're talking about the Rani. And so this comes up in passing. I don't really hear Mark of the Rani come up in conversation other than that. And I love Mark of the Rani. It's my favorite television Colin story, and one of his best stories overall. I think Kato Mara is fantastic in it. I like having her and the Master together in it. You can actually see how very different they are. The Rani's not just a female version of the Master. I like, especially in this story. And I enjoy, I don't really like Perry's outfit in it. That's pretty terrible. It's the only historical we get with Colin. Colin's good in it. I like the cliffhanger we get in it. And the incidental music in it's great. It's fantastic. I really like the incidental music a lot. I would have liked to have seen maybe one more historical with Colin, honestly. This one I hear a little more so than others, and even more so than some that are coming up on the list, but I don't hear it come up in conversation a lot, be it good, bad, or other. It just never really gets that talked about, unless people are talking about the Ronnie in general, like we had a lot happen earlier this year since the Ronnie came back in the Modern series. Next on the list is Vampires of Venice. This is a nice 11th Doctor story. I enjoy this one. Never really hear it talked about much anymore. Heard it talked about more back when it was originally airing and during the Matt Smith era. Not much now, which is a shame because you have some good performances here. The guy who's playing the dad trying to rescue his daughter, he's great. The actual daughter, she's good. The woman who's like the leader of the fish people, the mother of them, I guess, she's phenomenally good. My favorite scene in the whole episode is when her and the doctor are having that conversation where they trade a question from a question. And the fact she knows about Time Lords when she's like, you belong in a museum or a mausoleum. I like that scene because there's a respect there between them. She has a respect for him. He has a respect for her. There is like a mutual understanding there that comes across. I really like that. And I think he really is sorry he couldn't save her at the end. And, the fact he probably felt that he was responsible for all of this because the Time War destroyed their planet. And I also like the idea of finding out what the vampires are. Like, I do love the scene when he looks in the mirror and they're not there. He's like, how are you doing? I love the fact that he's not even scared. He's just fascinated. How are you doing? That's so the Doctor. That is totally the Doctor. I don't have time to be scared. I have questions. And that bit when he's like, tell me the whole plan. He's like, one day that'll work. And I'm trying to remember if that's the one when him and Rory have the UV lighting, and Rory's got the small UV light. He pulls out the yours is bigger. Let's not go there. Which probably means this is the one at the beginning when the Doctor crashes Rory's bachelor party, pops out of the cake. That's if that's it. It's funny. I can't remember if that's that episode or not. That's a funny scene. There's a lot in here to love in this episode. It's silly and serious and fun, and that's what I want in Doctor Who. And of course, our main cast are putting in good performances. Our guest cast are putting in good performances. I do like the fact Matt Smith does have to kind of crack down on Amy at one point when he's like, no, when I say do something, you do it. Go back to the... I like that. That way he can put his foot down when he has to, and she gets very unhappy about it and storms off in a huff. I like that. Just don't hear this story come up in conversation a lot. Another one sticking with Matt Smith is A Town Called Mercy. This is another one I used to hear more about. I don't hear much about now. I've always thought it was probably the best story of Season 7A, and I think I've heard like-minded things, but I never really hear it come up in conversation now. Certainly not Essential Doctor Who, but Season 7A is not Essential Doctor Who, really. I'm not very fond of... I much prefer 7B over 7A, easily. They feel like separate seasons, let's be honest. They're so tonally different. This one's enjoyable, and it's nice to have some moments where the Doctor almost goes too far, like when he got that one guy at point-blank gunpoint. And then Amy has to be like, this is what happens when you travel alone for too long. That's a really good scene. So there's some good stuff going on in it. It's just, it's a little forgettable to me now. I liked it more then. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe just everybody, and maybe the fandom in general, just finds it a little forgettable because I just never hear it really talked about now. Next one on the list is Snake Dance. I hear Kinda come up far more than Snake Dance. Now, I do hear back and forth between which one is better. I know some people like Kinda better. I know some people like Snake Dance better. I, of course, prefer Snake Dance much more over Kinda. Kinda seems to be talked about more. It seems the more popular of the two stories. Snake Dance is really good, though. I like Mara possessed Tegan, and we didn't get enough of that in Snake Dance, so I like that we get more of that here. I feel like the story's executed better. Martin Clunes is great in it. I like the ending of it. I like the extended ending of it, which I'm kind of surprised they didn't include more of that on the box set, unless they don't have the original master of that. Maybe all they have is that low quality VHS looking version of it. Maybe that's all that exists, or I figured we would have gotten the extended ending where you could watch it as part of the episode, even though I know you can watch the deleted scene on the box set and on the DVD, because I actually like that extended ending for it a lot. It's a really good story, but I don't... Snake Dance is not a Fifth Doctor story I just hear a lot about. I don't know if people like it. I don't know if people hate it. It strikes me as one of those stories. Some like it, some hate it. You know, a lot of Doctor Who stories have a pretty universal consensus, but I think Snake Dance is one that would probably be up in the air. Probably because so many people are going to compare it to Kinda, and some people like it better, and some people like it less. I personally prefer it over Kinda. Big time. Next on the list, sticking with the Fifth Doctor, is Frontios. I never really hear Frontios talked about a lot. And I think it's one of the highlights of season 21. I don't think it's perfect. And the Tractators, I like the Tractators more in idea than execution. I don't really care for their actual design, I'll be honest. And there are scenes where Turlough kind of freaking out puts me off a little bit. Although it makes sense in context with the story, why he's freaking out. Just for some reason, maybe it's just the way that he performed Turlough in that. My mind is blanking on the actor's name who plays Turlough. But the way he's playing that might just not work for me. But I love the story. It is a really good story. I really like Peter Davison in this. This is one of my favorite stories when it comes down to Peter Davis's performance. I think he is very solid. I think in season 21 he'd really figured his Doctor out. And I like that he is really choosing directions to go with his performance. I like the fact that he actually gets to act as a doctor in this one. I also like one of the guest actors. I don't know her name. I think she's also in Happiness Patrol, but I like her a lot. She plays like one of the medical doctor's daughter, I think. And she's really good in this. I like a lot of the set designs in this too. I do enjoy the set designs in this. I enjoy Frontios a lot. Again, it's one of the highlights of the season for me. I'm not saying it's the best of the season. That's probably Caves. But it would either be my second or third favorite. I can't decide if I like this or Resurrection better. But it's a strong point that I just feel like doesn't get talked about enough in conversation. And next on the list is Image of the Findal. This is another one where I think if I had to guess, the main consensus on this one would be good, but not quite as good as for some reason it should be. Like, this one should be a knock out of the park, almost like Horror of Fang Rock. For some reason, it doesn't quite live up to that. I think if you put Image of the Findal up with Horror of Fang Rock is going to win. But Image of the Findal has all the necessary pieces in it to be just as good or close to it. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to have that. And I agree with that. That's my assessment of it as well. I think Image of the Findal is very good, but doesn't quite hit like S tier. I think I might put it in A tier, but I still have to think about it. It's almost like the sum of its parts isn't as good as all of the parts making it up. And I have a couple of nitpicks, I know. Like, I wish the final version of the Findal looked a little more threatening. I mean, Wanda's great. Wanda's always great. But I just wish it looked a little more intimidating. And the fact the Findal doesn't really do anything at the end, it's just kind of there, teleporting and floating around. We know more, we get more about how deadly and dangerous the Findal creature is by the exposition, by the legend of it, the Doctor talking about it. We never really see that on screen. It's a bit anticlimactic. It's like the Doctor stops it before it can do all that, obviously. But I don't feel the threat of it like I do, say, with Sutek or with the Rutan. Even with Sutek, where he's immobile most of it, you still see him using powers. I'm convinced this is a bad dude. Just from the dialogue and what little bit we see him do, I'm convinced Sutek is a threat. That Image of the Findal, while doing something similar, I never quite get that. And that kind of hurts the story for me. And that seems to be the general consensus I get, is that it's good, but for some reason it should be better, but just isn't. What is your thoughts on Image of the Findal? And do you agree with that consensus? Next on the list is the Smugglers. Now, of course, the Smugglers is another one I never really hear people talk about. I never really get opinions. Now, it's been in the news a little the past couple years because of rumors of animations, which of course could have just been misinterpreted with news of the surviving clips being colorized. Because we do remember that at one point we had, rumors going around about smugglers being animated. Hell, there's still rumors about that. But I think what that was the surviving clips being colorized. That could have just been a mix-up there, a cross-communication there. But the smugglers as a story doesn't get talked about a lot. Now, this could be due to it being completely missing and being Hartnell's penultimate story. I do think these kind of missing stories don't get talked about as much. The faceless ones, the Macroterra, the Savages, because they're completely missing and because they might not have the reputation of having the best story in the universe to carry them. I love the Smugglers, personally. It's fantastic to me. I've read the novelization. I've watched the Telesnap Recon. I could go through the Telesnap Recon again. I really, really like the Smugglers. Hugely underrated for me. But I never hear it really come up in conversation unless people are talking about a potential animation for it. It never really comes up in discussion just on the merits of the story and what people think of it. So that's kind of one I wish I heard more about, because I like the Smugglers. I'm curious what you guys think of the Smugglers. And if it's one of those that, like, say, the Macroterra, might get reevaluated if it's animated. Of course, that would also depend on the animation, I think. I think part of what really helps the Macroterra is it is one of the best animations we've had. Next on the list is Time Heist. I never really hear a lot about Time Heist, which of course is a Peter Capaldi story. It's basically Doctor Who does Ocean's 11, which I like the Ocean's movies. I mean, I've never seen the original, but I've seen the 3 modern ones, and I enjoyed them. I like Time Heist. I like it. Do I think it's essential Doctor Who? No. Do I think it's S-tier Doctor Who? No. It's fun Doctor Who, though. It's a solid B story for me. It's fun. It's excitable. Capaldi is great in it. I like the guest cast well enough. They're not super memorable, but I like them well enough. Clara's fine in it. I like the ending of it. I like the Doctor realizing who's been leading them the whole way. It's like there's only one person who'd be arrogant enough to do. I like that. Capaldi's carrying the episode a little bit, but I enjoy the story. It's fun. It's filler. This is back when we had enough episodes per season, when you could do a fun kind of filler story like this. You can't really do that now with only 8-episode seasons. But it's very enjoyable. But I never really hear people talk about it. I don't know what the fandom consensus is on it. I mean, I've heard some people say they like it, some people who say they don't. But I never really hear about Time Heist a lot. It just kind of gets lost in the shuffle of either people talking about really good stories from season 8 or really bad stories from season 8 or series 8. So I never really Time Heist just kind of gets lost in there, I think, because I do think it's a kind of middle of the road story, solid B tier story. Next on the list is Robots of Sherwood, sticking with season 8, and I feel it's pretty much the same thing as Time Heist. I just never hear people really talk about it. Again, not an S-tier story, but fun filler story, really nice. I guess this would be, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say the 12th Doctor's first historical, but Deep Breath's kind of that. But I like bringing in fictional historical characters like Robin Hood in this. The guy playing Robin Hood is great. I like how childish him and the Doctor are with each other. It's interesting because Capaldi, especially in Series 8, plays that more William Hartnell-like Doctor, the very cantankerous kind of old man, but in a way he's acting so childish in this story. Like, he should be old enough to not act that childish. And Robin is giving it right back. I love when they're squabbling, when they're having the archery contest and the Doctor just blows it up with a sonic because he's totally over it. And then when they're arguing, when they're in chains, she's like, Robin's like calling him old man. He's like, oh, if you think you're going to live longer than me, well, I have a certain genetic advantage. And how Clara's basically having to act like the mom, like she's separating 2 brothers. Okay, you go to that corner, you go to that corner. Clara's actually pretty good in this episode as well. It's fun. It's exciting. The twist at the end with who the other woman we've been following the whole time is, the young girl. The twist with her at the end, I didn't see that coming. Maybe I should have, but I didn't see it coming, so I liked it. I do think how they defeat the thing at the end with the golden arrows a little on the nose, cliche, but it's a fun folktale fantasy story, so it gets a pass. I never hear anybody talk about Robots of Sherwood. It just seems overshadowed by other stories this season. Other stories that are good, other stories that are bad. You know, I hear more about Kill the Moon, even though it's usually bad things about Kill the Moon, than I do about Robots of Sherwood. What do you think of Robots of Sherwood? Next on the list is Planet of Giants. This is another one that I feel like is criminally underrated. Now, I never hear people talk bad about it. I just never really hear people talk much about it. And I love Planet of Giants. I love Planet of Giants more than I love Dalek Invasion of Earth. It's a good story. I think the set design looks really good. It does a really good job for 60s Doctor Who, on a 60s Doctor Who budget, of convincing me that they're in, you know, this land of giants, basically, where they've shrunk down. The sets look really good. I especially love the sink. When they're on the little sink, looks really good. The early episodes when they're in the grass, you know, it has a very Honey, I Shrunk the Kids look to it. And they almost look like set backdrops for a play. This episode really does come across as like a teleplay, which I enjoy. You even have a small little moment there where you forget you're watching Doctor Who when the two guys are arguing and one shoots the other, and I feel more like I'm watching Perry Mason, which I love Perry Mason, so I love that. And I really enjoy it. And you see Barbara getting sick and not wanting to tell anybody she's sick. I just really like this one. I mean, I feel like it gets lost in the shuffle mainly because it happens right before Dalek Invasion of Earth. I feel like at Dalek Invasion of Earth and its reputation overshadows it a little bit, it being Susan's penultimate story. But it's a shame that it never comes up in conversation. And again, I'm not saying it's S tier. I love it a lot. Solid A tier for me personally. But I'm not saying it's essential Doctor Who, but it's very enjoyable Doctor Who, and it's very well executed on screen. And I think the actors are all playing their parts well. I really, really enjoy it. It's just a shame that I never really hear anybody raving about it. You know, you never really see anybody doing YouTube videos about it. It just never seems to be talked about in the fandom, and I think that's a pity. I think that's a pity. Next on the list is The Ultimate Foe. I hear people talk about Trial of a Time Lord as a whole, because to be fair, it is officially numbered as one solid story, which is silly. I think of it as 4 separate stories. And I believe even in the US, it's marketed as 4 separate stories, even though they sold it in a box set. I think in the actual numbering here in the States, they number it as separate stories, where in the UK, they number it as a single story. That's why the numbering is slightly off between the US version and the UK numbers. That, and I think the US also numbers shoutout, and I think the UK doesn't. But just talking about The Ultimate Foe, Trial of a Time Lords Part 13 and 14, I never hear a lot about it by itself. Which, to be fair, you know, you have a 2-parter that's written by different people. Of course, Robert Holmes' final story being part 1, and then, of course, part 2 being written by Pip and Jane Baker, and they basically had to write it blindfolded with one hand tied behind their back because they couldn't be given any information on what was supposed to happen for legal reasons, with Eric Sayward and J&T having their big blow-up and Eric Sayward leaving. So, to be fair, for it to have come out as well as it did, and it's enjoyable, I think is almost a small miracle, to be honest. I do like part 1 better. I love Bob Holmes. But I think Pip and Jane Baker, considering all of the handicaps and how hamstrung they were having to write this, I think they did a good job. If there's one thing, Pip and Jane Baker really don't get enough credit. They're very good at working under pressure, and they're very good at working quickly under pressure. And I always feel bad that they don't get the recognition they deserve, because I tend to like all of their stories to one degree or another. I love Mark of the Ronnie. It's my favorite Colin Baker story, well, from the show. And I enjoy Time of the Ronnie. I think it's underrated, again, with a lot of behind-the-scenes production here. And then I feel like Ultimate Foe, I think they did a really good job with part 2. It's not as good as part 1. And I wish the climax with the Valiard had been a little better. But it's certainly enjoyable. You hear people talk about Trial of a Time Lord as a whole, but you don't hear about Ultimate Foe itself enough. And it's a solid 2-parter. Not perfect, but a solid 2-parter. Next on the list, sticking with 2-parters, is The Awakening. Now, I am not a big fan of The Awakening, but here's a fun question. What does the Doctor Who community, just as a whole or as an average, think of The Awakening? Answer, I have no idea. You know why? I have no idea. I never really hear anybody talk about The Awakening. Again, you don't see YouTube videos about The Awakening, really. I mean, I've reviewed it before, and I'm sure other people have, but you don't really see it come up a lot. It's just another one of those stories that kind of gets left by the wayside. Now, my personal thoughts on it is, I think part 1 is pretty good, and then part 2 is really not good. And as a whole, I don't really care for it, because sticking the landing is a big deal for me. But in part 1, I enjoy, and part 2, not so much. But I've never really heard a fan consensus on it. Like, I never quite know how people rank the Davison two-parters. That's a fun thing down in the comments. How do you rank the Davison two-parters? Me, my favorite, of course, is King's Demons, which I find vastly underrated. Then Black Orchid, which is okay. Love the location work in it a lot, but it's just okay. And then The Awakening, which, again, I'm not overly keen on. The next one is The Unicorn and the Wasp. Now, I'm sure it has a pretty fair reputation. It is part of Series 4, and Series 4 is a solid season. I think a lot of people would argue it's one of the best of modern Doctor Who, and it is a solid season, or series. But Unicorn and the Wasp, for me, just doesn't get talked about enough. It is a filler episode done right. It's fun, much like The Crimson Horror, which I also enjoy. The Unicorn and the Wasp is purposely a little silly. It's a little camp. Some of the actors even lean into that without doing it to excess. We also have Christopher Benjamin back. I love seeing Christopher Benjamin in Doctor Who one last time, as he is in some of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever made. And it's funny. It's very silly. It's very whimsy. The actress playing Agatha Christie is great. Of course, David Tennant and Catherine Tate are always phenomenally good together. The scene when he's poisoned and she's having to save him is so hilarious. Harvey Wallbanger. Do something to shock me, and then she kisses him and it works. I love that. The bit when he's interviewing people and how they're narrating versus what they're actually doing on screen in the flashbacks being totally different kills me every time. I love that. When we find out who the unicorn is, and she goes from using the one accent to the other accent, the actress does that perfectly. I love it. It's so much fun. It's a shame that, since it's not like, essential Doctor Who, like say Midnight or something, or The Journey's End two-parter, or whatever Series 4, top tier story you have, or just top tier Doctor Who story you have. The Empty Child, the Doctor Dances. This one is fun. It's one of the best of the filler episodes. It knows it's not essential Doctor Who. It's not trying to be essential Doctor Who. It's like, okay, we've got to fill in a slot. Let's make it count. Let's make it a memorable episode. And they do. This episode is fun. I love fun Doctor Who. Give me fun Doctor Who over the reality war any day. Any day. Next on the list is Smile. This is another one I just never really hear people talk about. I don't really know what the general consensus on Smile is. I enjoy it. Again, not essential Doctor Who. B-tier Doctor Who. C-tier maybe, but probably B-tier for me. I mean, if you're gonna do an episode on emojis, this is the way to do it. I think they pull it off, because that's just hearing, hey, we're gonna do an episode on emojis, my initial thought is, oh God, why? But they pull it off. It works. I like the fact that the nanites are part of the buildings. I like the fact that the nanites are doing what they're doing because they're not programmed to know better. That I love these situations where a computer does this stuff because the people making the computers weren't smart enough to realize it needed to tell the computer this. Because, as human beings or as people, we have certain common sense things we know. Much like in The Girl in the Fireplace. Hey, we're not going to use the crew to repair the ship. But someone didn't think, hey, the computer doesn't have that common sense. It doesn't know that. And so it's using the crew to repair the ship for its heart, its eyes, Madame de Pompadour's brain. I get fascinated by that, where it's basically human error. They just didn't anticipate that they needed to tell the computer that, but the computer is only as smart as you make it. What does the Doctor says in Robot? It's a very clever, stupid machine, or whatever it is he says. That's very much the case here in Smile, and I like that. I think that's done really well. Next on the list is The Girl Who Died and The Woman Who Lived. Even though these are technically sequel episodes, not necessarily a two-parter. But again, they just never really come up in conversation for me. I always think of these episodes as an excuse to have the girl from Game of Thrones in it. And she's fine. She's not great. She's fine. I'm not a big Game of Thrones fan. Never watched it. Thought about marathoning it when it was over. Heard how terrible the final season was. Said, out for me. No, thank you. If I wanted to suffer like that, I'd just watch season 4 of Airwolf. We don't talk about season 4 of Airwolf. Any real fans knows there's just 3 seasons of Airwolf. But this one, it's another one. I never hear this episode come up. Or these episodes, I should say. I don't really care for them. I think they both have a couple good moments in them, like Capaldi realizing why he has his face. That's really nice. But just overall, these are very forgettable episodes. I don't hear them come up a lot. I don't know what the general consensus is on them, if there even is one, because I just never hear them talked about. And to be honest, even I haven't gone back and watched them in a long time. I think I saw them when they aired, and I may have watched them once since. They're just uninteresting. We have the girl from Game of Thrones, and I'm over there going, I don't watch Game of Thrones! So, and then your stories just aren't interesting. They're on my list to go back through at some point, but that involves having to go back through them at some point. I haven't worked up the courage for that yet. Next on the list is Name of the Doctor. Believe it or not, I don't hear people talk about Name of the Doctor a lot. I feel like Name of the Doctor kind of gets lost in the shuffle with Night of the Doctor and Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor, because those are more important to the 50th and more important really to the canon. That, you hear Night of the Doctor, great having McGann back. Day of the Doctor, 50th. Time of the Doctor, Matt Smith's final story. Name of the Doctor kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I don't really care for Name of the Doctor, except for the bookending bits. Like, the opening is great. The cold open, when you see Clara interacting with all the classic Doctors, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite Doctor Who cold opens of all time. I love that. And then the ending with the cliffhanger reveal of John Hurt as the War Doctor. Also phenomenal. Most of the stuff in the middle is okay. Not great. Not really good, but okay. I do think Richard E. Grant is great as the Great Intelligence. I think all of the actors are fine. I even think the story's written fine. Some of the incidental music's really good too, like when the Doctor is upset about Trenzalore, when he finds out, and it was Trenzalore, it was definitely Trenzalore, the piece of music that plays there, really good. And the bit when he reveals that the secret is his grave, you didn't listen, you lot never do. That bit is nice, but for some reason, right when they're about to land on Trenzalore, once they're on Trenzalore, I'm just uninterested. I mean, once they get into the TARDIS and they get into the main console room, it's okay. I never really go back and watch this episode. I might get on YouTube and watch the opening clip or the closing clip, but the stuff in the middle, it's like there's a lot of good parts in there, but the sum of them just doesn't do anything for me. I don't know why, but it just doesn't do a lot for me. But I feel like Name of the Doctor gets lost in the shuffle of all of the Doctors going on at the time, and I never really hear it talked about that much. Next on the list is Black Orchid. Again, another Davison two-parter. I don't hear Black Orchid come up a lot. I do hear it more than The Awakening and more than several of the other stories we've talked about. I hear it occasionally. Sometimes people talking about how the DVD commentary for it's hilarious, which I've listened to it. It is funny. And of course, the location work for it looks great, as season 19 is kind of the holy grail of surviving location footage, with I believe all of the location footage from season 19 surviving, so it's in proper HD. Probably why we got the season 19 set second in the range, because you could get some actual true HD in this. So the stories that have location work look really good, especially Black Orchid, which does have a lot of location work, especially in episode 1, which looks gorgeous. I do think part 1 is stronger than part 2. The one kind of servant guy with the weird, that's really off-putting for me. That really bothers me. I don't know. I don't like looking at that. I find it very unnerving and bothersome. The story itself isn't really that good. It's I never tend to like stories where there's someone else, when an actor is playing a second part, like be it the Doctor or one of the companions, and they're playing dual roles, unless there's a plot reason for that to take place, like say Megloss, because it's actually part of the plot why Tom Baker's playing two characters. I never like when it's just a coincidence, though, like in The Massacre or Enemy of the World, when that's the case. So seeing basically two Nisses here, Sarah Sutton playing dual roles, is a bit, for me. At the end of the day, it's just kind of middle of the road, maybe D tier for me. Good location work, though. I do like the scenes when he's playing cricket. And I do like the fact that the police believe the Doctor, and even when they go in the TARDIS, they just kind of take it in stride. I will admit, I do like that part a lot. Next on the list is the Keys of Marinus. I never really hear people talk about the Keys of Marinus much, and I don't know what the general fan consensus on the Keys of Marinus is. I like the Keys of Marinus a lot. It's kind of like a mini version of the Key to Time season, with each episode kind of acting as a different story, much like the Key to Time, where it's a seasonal arc, but each story is kind of its own thing. It's kind of like that in the Keys of Marinus, where it's a 6-parter, but each episode is kind of its own thing, and then each episode, for the most part, feels vastly different. You have episode 1, which sets everything up. Episode 2 is in the city where they're kind of hallucinating. I think episode 3 is the jungle. Episode 4 is the Arctic area. Episode 5 is more a murder mystery, very Perry Mason. And then episode 6 finishes up the murder mystery and then gets us back to the same spot we were in episode 1. And I like that. I like the variety in that. I like the seasonal arc it feels like it has to it. It's almost like we're watching a mini season, especially considering how modern Doctor Who seasons are only 8 episodes now, and Keys of Marinus is 6 episodes, even though they're half-hour episodes. It feels like its own little mini season. So I thoroughly enjoy the Keys of Marinus. It's one of my 2 favorite stories of the season. It's hard for me to pick between Reign of Terror and Keys of Marinus. I love both. But again, it doesn't come up in conversation a lot to me. I don't quite know what the fandom's consensus on it is, and it deserves to be talked about more, in my opinion. And the last one on the list for today is the Mythmakers. I never really hear a lot of people talk about the Mythmakers, and much like the Smugglers, this could be due to it being completely missing. Also, I think for the long time, the audio wasn't the best quality. I think we have better audio for the Mythmakers now, I keep hearing. I don't think it was part of the Randolph tapes. I thought the Randolph tapes picked up partway through Master Plan. But it seems to me that they have better audio sources for Mythmakers now. But it's kind of one, again, probably due to its totally missing nature, that isn't talked about as much, with its more main significance being the story where Vicky leaves. Even if it's not the best companion departure ever, it's another, the female companion falls in love and stays, which is a little tropey, even at this point. But it's still not the worst companion exit ever either. Now, I loved the novelization of this a lot, which is very different from the TV version, as it's told from a different point of view, and it's basically Homer recounting a story. But the telesnap reconstruction was fine. There's some incidental music in there that's not so great. But other than that, it's enjoyable. I liked it well enough. Nothing to write home about. CD tier. Maybe if it's animated, I think it could go up in my estimation a little bit. But it certainly wasn't bad. I definitely liked a lot of the performances in it. The girl playing Cassandra, maybe. The sister, the prophet sister, she's good. The guy playing, what is his name? Odysseus. I liked him a lot. Them thinking the Doctor was Zeus was a little funny, but I guess I kind of get it. It's enjoyable without being perfect. Again, maybe C tier, D tier, something like that. Average, maybe a little below average. But again, I never hear people really talk about the Mythmakers, so I just don't really know what the general consensus is on it. So I'm curious. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. So that's my list. 25 Doctor Who stories that just aren't talked about much, that I never really hear talked about much. I don't really know what the general fandom consensus on them are. I want to know what you think of these stories, or maybe there's some I didn't name you think should get talked about more, because there's definitely more I could have put on this list. Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. I always enjoy seeing new people join the Patreon. Early access to videos, exclusive videos, and I plan on doing some more stuff there in the future as well. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Sam, Venning, Finn, Perkins, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and my YouTube members. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review, love getting fan mail. Link to the Amazon wishlist is down there. Link to the Amazon UK wishlist is also down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.